Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are very Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better in New York or New Jersey. Go to EdenMemorial.com.
Talking about
this is the Rip and Read featuring Curtis Sliwa. Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
And so it is the Rip and Read here with Curtis Sliwa. And from what I understand, he's got some concerns he'd like to lay out about our news director, Noam Laden.
You know, the Democrats for a long time did not take seriously the gradual and then very quick disintegration of Joe Biden.
The cognitive decline of our president. Yeah,
they were in denial, including Vice President Harris.
Well, they certainly kept it from, they didn't focus on it for sure.
And then what happened in June on that stage of CNN in Atlanta, we saw the real Joe Biden, a complete dysfunctional human being.
Right, a husk of his former self, yeah.
I think I got to be the whistleblower, but I need your help on this because everyone around here is going to call me a rat. And by the way, Lou Ruffino, I eat more Parmesan cheese than anybody else. And yes, it is an ethnic slur. But I think it requires someone to break the WABC wall of silence here, Justin Ellick. Remember, I know snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. But I have detected a growing impairment that has surfaced in the newscasts of your boss, our news director, Noam Laden.
Really? This is very concerning.
Now, I know you've been with him a long time. You were over at Women's Only Radio together, WOR.
Yep.
And you oftentimes said, if not for Noam, you would not have come here.
Well, that's true. Yeah, totally true. 100%.
But the audio tape doesn't lie. As Warner Wolf would say, let's go to the videotape. Curtis Sliwa says, let's go to the audio tape. Just this morning. And Justin Ellick, don't hide on this. You are my witness. Listen to this lingering faux pas of a newscast on the number one morning show in the nation from coast to coast, Sid Rosenberg and Friends, right? In the 7 o'clock hour, when most people are beginning to listen, because my segment is listened to more than any other segment between 6 and 10, because I come on at 7:15. Listen to Noam fumble and stumble like Joe Biden.
77 WABC time check is, I think my computer has died again. This is nice.
It's 7:15.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get this going again. Hold on.
I felt like I was helping there.
I know you were. Just can't read any of my other copy here.
You want me to take care of your sports right here?
Sure.
Why
Let's
not?
go to the sports.
Hey now, all right.
So Justin, at his very best, threw him a lifeline, but Noam couldn't even grab the lifeline. If you notice, he was lost. He was vapid.
Well, I think that unfortunately, every now and then, you do have some technological problems you run into while doing the news.
Granted.
Now, look, I fully understand.
Granted.
You're a Luddite. You don't understand any of this technology. You need someone else to do it for you, including printing articles and, getting all the sound together and stuff like that.
It was just a technological glitch, I can understand. But within a minute thereafter, this is how he described the Al Smith dinner last night.
Former President Trump getting a lot of laughs at the Alfred E. Smith dinner here in the city last night.
Alfred E. Newman, what me worry of Mad Magazine, with the flies flying around his head, spy versus spy in the corner.
Yeah, well, see, I think that I can explain this one. I imagine that when doing the news, you get a lot of different associations in your mind while you're doing it, right? So you're thinking, okay, this is politics. Vice President Harris isn't there. President Biden's not there. Geez, did he send anybody from the administration? Like maybe Pete Buttigieg is there.
No, you don't understand.
Pete Buttigieg, Alfred E. Newman. No, okay.
No.
Or maybe he was thinking, you know what?
No.
Everything about this is just madness. It's madness.
Don't try to cover
Mad
this up.
Magazine.
We're getting calls already from members of the Roman Catholic community that say that Noam Laden is disparaging the first Roman Catholic to run for the presidency of the United States. Not once, twice.
No, that's not
Al
it.
Smith, former governor.
No, what happened was he
Guy
saw...
who built the Empire State Building in the Depression in a year's time.
Look, he saw that Mayor Adams was there at the event, Noam did, and he thought to himself, Winnie Greco and Spy versus Spy.
No.
Mad TV. No. Alfred E. Newman. Oh, no, wait.
Can I hear that again, please, Lou Ruffino? There's no excuses for this. This is clearly anti-Catholic.
Former President Trump getting a lot of laughs at the Alfred E. Smith dinner here in the city last night.
That is who disgraziata. Now, yesterday I saved his career. You're not aware of this, James Flippin, because you were suffering postpartum depression, another loss of your beloved Mets. We'll get into that momentarily. But Noam Laden said something on his 8 o'clock broadcast on Sid and Friends that caused the Argentine consulate to call.
Oh, jeez.
Even the Vatican, the Argentine Pope's secretary, Francis, was so outraged they were going to have protests outside. They called up Emily Pankow, our attorney upstairs, Judge Weinberg. They were talking lawsuits. How dare you impugn the great Argentine people? Never mind that Evita Peron and Juan Peron were fascists. That's not what this was about.
Groups of migrants have been mugging tourists in Times Square. Police say they're working to take down the group that are part of an Argentinian gang.
Argentinian gang. Has anybody described them as an Argentinian gang?
No, I'm pretty well aware that it is that Venezuelan concern with the Tren de Agua.
Yeah, very good.
Tren de Aragua.
There's something wrong, cognizantly, going on in that medulla and cerebellum of Noam Laden. And remember, he had that patch on his head for a while. That lobotomy.
Well, I want to make clear.
Am I right, Justin Ellick? You remember that lobotomy he had, right? Lou Ruffino, there was a lobotomy that he had.
So I want to make clear here. Are you alleging that our news director is engaging in anti-Catholic behavior or that he's showing cognitive decline?
All of the above.
I say.
Plus an inability to know the difference between Venezuela and Argentina.
See, I think the one thing you're leaving out here that's the missing piece is that Noam is also a Mets fan. But let's not forget that he has to get up at 2 a.m.
Your manager is from Venezuela.
Right.
Carlos Mendoza.
Maybe he,
I don't know of any baseball players from Argentina. So don't keep making excuses. We need to give him a Rorschach test. When we give him a Rorschach test, because a lot of people don't know Noam Laden actually went to commie camp when he was a kid. That's right, communist camp in the Beltway of Maryland. And his camp counselor, believe it or not, was Matt Drudge, the Matt Drudge of the Drudge. They were all raised red diaper doper babies. They were raised by communists.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is we had the anniversary of the assassination of his hero, Che Guevara, the other Argentine, in Bolivia by our CIA as he was on that burro, trying to foment more revolution. And I just think that he's having all these flashbacks. So if we give him the Rorschach test, he'll see a picture. Who is that? Oh, that's Lenin.
Yeah.
Not John Lennon. That's Vladimir Lenin.
Right. I could picture it. He'd say, oh, that's Pol Pot.
Yes.
Oh,
that's Mao. That's the Little Red Book of Mao.
Yeah.
The Cultural Revolution.
And then maybe there's one that would have a little fuzzy, and he'd say, oh, and that's, of course, Karl Marx.
Can we schedule a Rorschach test?
Okay, I'd actually be interested in watching that one.
But there is some redemption here. Who is his best friend down at City Hall now? I realize the pieces on the Titanic are changing quickly. People are jumping overboard. People are being taken overboard through indictment. But the chairs on the Titanic,
they're being rearranged.
Not only that, rearranged, they're being pulled from the deck of the ship. But his favorite all-time personality at City Hall.
You're referring to Ingrid Lewis Martin, who you've also sometimes referred to as a Rasputin-like figure,
Rasputin, a Svengali, my enemies, tried to get me fired many times. And Noam has always been, first and foremost, a defender, showing pictures, right?
Right,
he
took a nice picture with her at an event.
This is the redemption, though. This is the redeeming moment of his broadcast, where he put his journalist hat on, he took off his tinfoil cap, he was waving the fluorescent light bulbs around his head, and he actually put his journalist cap on, his Matt Drudge cap on. And this is what he had to say about his very dear friend, Ingrid Lewis Martin at City Hall.
Mayor Adams denying knowing much about a vacation to Japan involving 2 senior staffers who had their phones taken away from them as they returned from that flight. Adams says he doesn't ask where or whom his staffers are traveling with when they go on vacation. Now, we'll point out this is his chief advisor.
I do not sit down with my staffers and say, before you go on vacations, you need to tell me who you're going on with, and you need to let me know where you're going. I don't do that. Believe it or not, what people do on their personal, private time is on them.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Adams' chief advisor, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, and Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services, Jesse Hamilton, had their phones seized at JFK last month in connection to the Manhattan DA's office investigation into possible corruption involving the city's commercial leases. That, according to a New York Times report. They apparently, 2 of them traveled with a lobbyist who had recently lobbied Hamilton and the VP of the commercial real estate services firm Cushman & Wakefield. Now, this goes really into the weeds, but they're suggesting that they took this free trip and that there may be more going on here. But the mayor's saying that he did not know that Ingrid Lewis-Martin, his chief advisor, was going on a trip to Japan. Now, let me just say this, and it may be true, he doesn't know. But like I work with Lou every day, and when Lou goes on vacation, the first thing I ask him is, where you going? And then when he comes back, I say, how was your vacation?
See, he is now that's the redeeming factor.
Mm-hmm.
He threw his own very dear friend from City Hall, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, who would constantly get information from him about me.
No, I think Noam has a great nose for BS and kind of things that are hinky, don't sound right, don't add up. He's been doing it for a long time. He kind of knows the way human behavior tends to match up and stuff like that. So
by
he's
the
absolutely
way,
right.
He is having meltdowns of late. He is losing control of his mental faculties. Justin Ellick, can you make sure that when the start of the program of Sid Rosenberg and Friends begins Monday at 6, that he tells the story about how he was in a marketplace. I think it was Trader Jose's in Jersey City, and he was buying the feta cheese. And a Islamic jihadist came up to him and said, "Oh, is that Israeli feta cheese?" And Noam was like ready to fight. Now, you know him. He's a pacifist, man. He is like, turn your cheek, turn my tuchus cheek, turn my head cheek. He will never fight. He was ready to fight that Islamic jihadist, I guess because of the death of Sinwar.
So wait, this
Something's
just happened?
Yes. He forgot to tell Sid Rosenberg this morning. You see, there's something going on with him.
Well, so you keep downplaying what I'm trying to tell you, which is that since he has to get up so early in the morning, which is always his life and his work schedule, what's throwing it off are these late Mets games. He's staying up to watch the Mets games.
That's true. And look,
granted, it's a blowout by the 6th inning, so then he can go to sleep.
I didn't want to bring it up. You have a great season, but the gods of Major League Baseball are stacked against you. All I see are commercials, number 17, Ohtani, number 99, Aaron Judge. I don't even see Lindor in there, who's your MVP, right?
Yeah.
But I know you're departing after tonight, right? Game 3, right?
Tonight's game 4, I guess. Game 5. Game 5.
Game 5.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice here. Get you back to Game 3, right? You were feeling a little better about going into Game 3.
Yeah, I was going out to the game. I was hopeful that they got a split in L.A.
I remember. I saw you leave here.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to throw yourself in front of the number 7 train going back to Times Square. But anyway, the point being is, I know you're on your way to Italia.
Yes.
I want you, I have a present for you before you leave.
This is how coworkers you ask about vacations and stuff, like Noam was saying.
A throwback Mike Piazza Italian Stallion jersey.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to wear that in Italy because he spent a lot of time in Italy. They love Mike Piazza.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm going to give you his shredded bat from the World Series 2000 when Royd head Roger Clemens was throwing at his head. You remember?
Sure, yeah.
And after the game tonight, when you lose to Ohtani, I want you to take that shredded bat.
Okay, so take it like a Harry Carey situation.
Yeah.
Take a seppuku and get the blade.
Look, it'll be over
the
quick.
Piece of wood. Rip. Okay, so that's a good way to.
Look, didn't Sinwar throw a piece of wood at that drone before they did him in?
Yes, he saw the drone and he sort of weakly and meekly tried to throw the wood.
And then finally, you're going to Florencia, Venezia. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Rome is a dump. You're going to go to the Colosseum. You're going to see rats and garbage everywhere. It's like a polluted city.
Good. I'll be feeling right at home.
Graffiti everywhere. It's horrible. Then you go over to the Vatican. You know, its own independent and autonomous country, 1 square mile, right?
That's true.
With walls all around it.
Yeah, which is weird because the Pope's not really into walls, I thought.
No, the Pope is like, hey, there should be no walls. Let all the migrants across the borders, open borders.
Not at my house.
That's right. If you're opposed to migrants' invasion of your country, that's a grave sin. Let them come. Let them come on. So I want you to go over there. And I want you to walk inside. And I want you to scream, can you show me one freaking migrant in here, Popey? Just one. Just one. You're giving sanctuary to any migrant?
I'm sure I'll get an audience with the Pope to ask him that question.
And he's an Argentine, so we've gone full circle. Remember, he was the bouncer outside of that Jiggle Wiggle bar in Buenos Aires, and then he had the epiphany, and the next thing you know, the white smoke went up the chimney, and they chose the Argentine. So I want you to have a very good trip. But if you don't come back, if you haven't gone behind the walls of the Vatican, which are meant to keep all the migrants out, and actually confront Pope Francis, hey, Popey, where are the migrants here? Right there in the square. Then don't bother coming back.
If I don't, then don't come back.
Don't bother coming back. Your Mets will have lost. You'll be waiting for spring training, pitchers and catchers coming to Port St. Lucie in February. But right now, I want you to get the hell out of here.
Ciao.
Curtis Sliwa. Curtis Sliwa. Rip and read. Check this out.
This is the Rip and Read, featuring Curtis Sliwa.
Talking about.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa. This is the Rip and Read.
Now available for the first time ever on home video, the best of the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast.
What a night. Who are we honoring?
Jokes, jabs, insults, and put-downs. That's what made these roasts hilarious and makes this tape a must-have for your video library.
Johnny Carson is a comedian who is seen every night in millions of bedrooms all over America. And that's why his last wife left him.
This tape features over 50 stars and over 100 minutes of the funniest, most outrageous laughs ever seen on television.
Oh, sweet it is.
She wants to dye her hair back to its original color, but she can't remember.
It takes many years to be a great comedian. Sure does. You ain't reached that year yet.
You know, some performers never have a night like this. Those are the lucky ones.
Call now to order the best of the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts for only $19.95. It's not sold in any store, so call and order right now.
You know, after last night's appearance at the Al Smith dinner, as Trump was riffing up the improv, he could have his own Donald Trump Celebrity Roast commercial for a tape that all of you could pay for because he was magnificent. He was absolutely outstanding, and I loved every second of it, particularly when he did the diss and dismiss against the schmuck the putz, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer.
Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? It looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
They were cheering. And then he dissed and dismissed Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope, who single-handedly destroyed this city that we love.
We have another former New York City mayor with us, frankly, easily the worst in our history. And it's not Michael, that I can tell you. I'm surprised that Bill de Blasio was actually able to make it tonight, to be honest. He was a terrible mayor. I don't give a if this is comedy or not. He was a terrible mayor. He did a horrible job. That's not comedy, by the way, that's fact. But unlike the rest of New York, at least Bill doesn't have to worry about the criminals. They owe him big. He let them get away with a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Magnificent. And there was Comrade Bill de Blasio in a drug-induced psychosis after doing puff, puff, pass before he got there with the black Esquire shoe polish in his hair. And I don't know if he had been canoodling with a man or woman or transgender, whatever. But this guy deserved every venomous word from Trump on behalf of all of us that he could give.
A major issue in this race is child care, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep them away. That's a nasty one. That's nasty. I told these idiots that gave me this stuff, that's too tough.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I'm telling you, it's worthy of a Donald Trump celebrity roast commercial for an online presentation that you could contribute to his campaign through.
Now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
Curtis doesn't know about you, but he rips and reads.
This is the Rip and Read.
Padre, Filio, Spiritus Sanctum. Well. First off, nobody cares about the Al Smith dinner. Nobody. Not one vote will be won or lost based on a bunch of rich people all showing up at an Al Smith dinner to support Catholic charities, half of whose budget goes to bringing in illegal aliens across the border. We'll get into that momentarily. You really think America cares about who showed up at the Al Smith dinner? This dinner didn't start until 1960, Nixon versus JFK. They both showed up. But if memory serves me correct, Richard Nixon didn't even show up 72 when he ran against George McGovern. That was my first vote for George McGovern, the Dove. So come on, knock all this crap off. Oh, she didn't show up at the Al Smith dinner. It's a diss to Catholics. No. Catholic Charities has dissed America, and they do it day in and day out by aiding and abetting the transport of illegal aliens into our country. That is the number one problem. And so if you were there last night for Catholic Charities, then basically you were saying, well, some of what you do is real good, children's charities, domestic charities, and it is. I've experienced it. But then what about the other half of the budget, $250 million, all of which is procured from you, the sucker tax dollars? In fact, you really think Cardinal Dolan would be upset at Vice President Harris for not being there? Really? The Biden-Harris Mayorkas administration has been the best thing for Catholic charities ever. They're the number one NGO, number one charity. It gets funded with federal dollars in order to stay at the border. And after crossing, the illegal aliens who have surrendered themselves to the U.S. border agents, they are directed right into the arms of Catholic charities. And what does Catholic Charities do for them? You know that if you've been listening to this program, because I've been telling you ever since August of 2022, when Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan, decided to go one up on Governor Abbott by calling him in Texas a racist. And Governor Abbott never intended to send illegal aliens to New York City. Never. He said it over and over again, and I believe him. His intent was to send them to the White House, where Biden was in D.C., and the Naval Observatory, where the Tsarina, Harris, and her husband resided. And he did that. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Eric Adams in his $5,000 customized suits decided he was going to call Abbott a racist and dared him to send him to New York City. So, hey, Abbott said, you call me a racist, I'm going to make them pound the hound. I'm going to redirect them to New York City. And who aided and abetted in that process with $250 million of our tax dollars? Catholic Charities. The moment the illegal alien crossed the border from Mexico into America, there was Catholic Charities. They would provide them with hotel rooms, meals, clothing, bus and plane tickets. And you know something? None of that money came from the collection basket that they pass around on Sunday. And you know why they're supporting illegal aliens coming in? Because go to your average parish, your average Roman Catholic parish on a Sunday for the English-speaking Mass. You could roll a Brunswick bowling ball through the pews in the aisles. There's almost nobody there. Then when all of a sudden, later in the day, it's the Spanish Mass or the Creole Mass for the Haitians, packed to the rafters. The Roman Catholic Church knows that they have chased their parishioners away because of their malfeasance and their perversions, and how they've had to give millions of dollars of parishioners' money away to settle lawsuits, like in Los Angeles, that started all this nonsense, bringing in illegal aliens and giving them sanctuary in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles 20 years ago. The Archdiocese just did a payout of $900 million because of pedophile priests perving on children. Yeah. That's the church you were supporting, right? I bet you there was no mention of that. The L.A. Archdiocese would have been extinct and out of business if not for the fact of opening up the gates and bringing in all the Mexicans, El Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Hondurans, and those from South America who are Catholics, because that has filled the pews, the Spanish-speaking masses. That has enabled the Roman Catholic Church to survive in North America, especially in the United States. So think about the hypocrisy. They take money from the federal government to bring the illegal aliens in. Catholic Charities provides them with all the services at the taxpayers' expense. They don't use any money from the collection basket that they pass around on Sundays and on other special occasions. And remember, there was that time when Bob Astorino, remember Rob Astorino was at the Westchester County Airport? I remember it as if it was like yesterday. It was August of 2021, seemed a lifetime ago. And he was like Tattoo on the runway. He was like Tattoo, screaming. Flights that were coming in, provided by our federal government, of illegal aliens under the cover of darkness with no markings on the tail, like CIA flights who used to ferry weapons down Nicaragua during the battles between the Contras that we supported and the Sandinistas. Can I have my choral chant, please? I need the inspiration. The only thing I'm missing is the smell of the incense in the aisles. But our CIA planes, again, never had markings on their wings. They would bring the weapons into the Contras as they battled the Sandinistas. And remember, they would bring back kilos full of cocaine. Yeah, our CIA criminals in action. Oh, yeah. The crack cocaine menace. How quickly we forget. So unmarked planes were bringing in illegal aliens under the cover of darkness. It was the Biden-Harris Mayorkas administration. And Rob Astorino spotted it, reported it. They were put on buses. They went the wrong way down the Hutchinson Parkway into the Bronx and then over the Whitestone Bridge into Queens. And where did they end up going? To Catholic Charities locations, where they were given all the amenities that not even mommy gave them back to the countries of origin. How quickly you forget. 2021, Rob Astorino warned us. They said he was lying. And our elected officials were in on it. Eric Adams was in on it. At that time, Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo was in on it before he was run out of Albany, afraid that his Democrats would impeach him and indict him. And he's holed up in his compound there in the Hamptons, planning his comeback like a political zombie. Oh, they all knew. Cuomo knew, Hochul knew, Adams knew. Obviously, it was all in synergy with the Biden-Harris Mayorkas administration, and they vilified Rob Astorino. But who provided the lodgings? Who provided them the places to be processed into? Like Catholic Charities with our tax dollars. So, ladies and gentlemen, they have been in the forefront of making money off of the invasion of illegal aliens. And I must tell you this. So for all of those folks last night who were there to support Catholic Charities, why didn't any one of you stand up and say, I understand all the great work you do domestically. There's no doubt about that. But why are you spending our tax dollars to bring in illegal aliens that are going to destroy our city, going to destroy our state, that are being treated better than our own homeless, our own domestic homeless, our emotionally disturbed homeless men and women who live in the streets, who live in the subways, who live in the parks? How is it that we have turned our backs on them, Catholic Charities, so that you can enrich your coffers? So scream and hoot and holler all you want. The Vice President Harris was MIA last night at Catholic Charities' annual event, the Al Smith Dinner. Nobody knows what that dinner is. Nobody cares about that dinner except for rich people, wealthy people, and connected people. There's not an American out there who's going to cast their ballot for Trump or Harris based on what transpired last night at the Al Smith dinner. But when all of a sudden you put Catholic Charities on a pedestal, just understand you're dealing with Curtis Sliwa here. Baptized the Roman Catholic, communion, confirmation, went to Catholic schools. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've seen a lot of good, but I've also seen a lot of ugly. And if you're a taxpayer out there in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut and Eastern Pennsylvania and anywhere in the United States, just know that the Biden-Harris Mayorkas government gave and continues to give millions of our dollars to facilitate illegal immigration. And the Pope, who's the head of all of this, chastises all Catholics and says, we should be for open borders. We should allow them all in, or we are committing a grave sin. Meantime, you go to the Vatican, one of the wealthiest, richest locations in the world, an independent, autonomous nation with the most crooked money laundering bank that exists, the Vatican Bank. And they don't have not one illegal alien that they've taken in behind their walled state, city, country. The hypocrisy was so thick last night at the Al Smith dinner, you could cut it with a Ginzu and Rambo knife. When you say Catholic Charities, I say, well, how do you think the illegal aliens were able to invade our country? They aided and abetted this invasion, and they continue to do it each and every day.
To the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
Curtis doesn't know about you, but he rips and reads.
This is the Rip and Read. It's the left versus the right. In the right corner, Dominic Carter. In the left corner, it's Anthony Weiner. Now, to the Bernard McGurk studios, it's a 77 WABC debate. The melee in the metropolis.
Here he comes. Anthony Weiner. Now, Anthony, you've been to the Al Smith dinners in the past.
I went a couple of times. It's a weird event, man. A lot of dudes. I think it's an all-male event. It's the Young Sons of, what is the organization called?
No, it's Catholic Charities.
No, the organization is called like the Sons of something. It's a very weird room.
Well, you can imagine why they've never invited me there. But it started with Kennedy and Nixon, 60.
Exactly.
Nobody seems to ever mention that Richard Nixon never went in 72 against McGovern. That was my first vote
ever. But it's become a tradition. But this is the year of breaking traditions. Going to being interviewed by 60 Minutes is a tradition.
I know, but do you really think anybody gives a damn whether they showed up at the Al Smith dinner or not? They care about how much are groceries, can I send my kid to college? Oh, you think a Catholic says, oh, you didn't show up at the Al Smith dinner, I'm not going to vote for you.
No, this is the same crowd that tunes in every year for the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Exactly.
It's a lot of nerds.
But
it's fun. But having politicians show that they can make fun of themselves I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes. It was like an old Dean Martin roast.
A little bit.
I mean, it was great. Okay, so now it's crunch time. As you can see, Trump is now making the appeal to Republican and independent women, and Harris is making an appeal to minority men and men in general. This is what it gets down to every 4 years.
I guess so. But Trump has run a very male-heavy campaign.
Oh, he has. There's no doubt.
But not for nothing. I mean, it seems also Trump is acting like he's ahead. He's canceling all these events. He didn't go to the NRA. He didn't do 60 Minutes. He said yes to NBC, and then he canceled. Either he thinks he's winning, or they're worried about putting him in a place where he's going to get a little bit dinged up.
I think if we look at past history, Hillary, he was down by 6. Biden, he was down by 7, and it was neck and neck in both. I think it's safe to say that he is ahead, and Harris has sort of just flattened out. Her apex, her and the coach, and you don't even see the coach anymore after that disastrous debate performance. I think what's happened is her apex was the debate. She was in there. There's no doubt. A lot of people felt she won, and it just seems she's like been on thin ice ever since.
It was a tie election in 2020. 2020. Remember, we talk about how, Biden won all these swing states. He won them by 1 point, half a point, three-quarters of a point. And that was only 4 years ago. It's the same Donald Trump. So I think absolutely it's tied. I don't think anyone knows what the heck is going to happen here. I do think, though, undecided people, whoever they might be, are going to break towards Harris because she seems different and new, and they are just had enough of Donald Trump. But I would not want to place a bet on this one.
Right, but it is now up to the independents again. Throughout the rest of the 4 years, they are made fun of. When you go to the Board of Elections, they're called blanks. Is there anything,
I know, but there's the other thing. Or are more people going to turn out? Like there was an Obama wave that changed the math around African Americans. Now, is that happening with Harris? Maybe, maybe not. Look, for all the beefing about the polls that people do, in 2022 they hit it exactly right. Everyone said red wave, red wave, red wave, and it turned out that it wasn't, and the polls called it.
That's because of abortion, and that is always the Achilles heel for the Republicans.
But I'm saying that the polls got it right.
Yes.
The polling has not been terrible. It's just people have to understand, when you hear someone say, Harris is up by 2, that means it's a tie. That means she can be up by 2 or down by 2. It's the same thing.
Right, but now what would your advice be to her in the waning days of this campaign?
I mean, this is now at the very end. What you traditionally do is you turn out. You're trying to get your base out to vote. But the problem is, it's very different than when you and I first got onto this. Now voting starts a month out, so you can't just wait for the last few days to start doing your get out the vote poll, or the last week to do it. So they've been doing a lot of the numbers coming in on absent. The biggest thing that Donald Trump has done to hurt himself, though, in the modern era, is poo-poo and downplay paper ballots, early voting, because a lot of people still don't trust it on the Republican side.
But that has changed measurably. I can just tell you, being in a lot of Republican gatherings, the urge is first day of early voting, be there to vote. In 2020, you would have been considered like a traitor to do that.
Right.
Don't you dare vote until Election Day itself.
Well, it's also, there was so much of the lying about the election last time was about how paper ballots were fraudulent. People should get on the road. Right now in the swing states where they can keep track of not how you voted, because that they won't know for a while, but what party is returning more absentee ballots and early ballots, Democrats have the edge, but they always do.
They do.
That's always been the advantage.
Right. But
for
I will tell you this, in our news cycle, notice a disaster like we had 2 back-to-back hurricanes in Florida. The first Hurricane Helene working its way into the Carolinas and Georgia. You don't hear anything about that any longer.
Yeah, and also in states like North Carolina, 10,000 people being displaced could be 10,000 votes that are the difference. But
remember what happened Superstorm Sandy out in the area you represented, Breezy Point, the Rockaways, Broad Channel. Cuomo, who was the governor at that time, said, hey, look, special executive order. You can vote at any polling location from Buffalo to Brooklyn. And Shamu El Jefe Chris Christie, the shore was devastated, the Jersey Shore. He said you could vote by email.
But even in 2020, there are a lot of states that made special rules because of COVID. That still exists today. Some of them don't. But look, I mean, this is all I can tell you is there are people out there, and I don't know if you're one of them. If Harris wins, they're gonna think the end of the world. And if Trump wins, there's other people think it's the end of the world. Now, someone's world is half the country is going to have the end of the world happen in 20 days.
Tonight, we're on the cusp of Shabbat, right? And we're in the middle of Sukkot. You know who's going to be in his hut, wearing his yarmulke, lighting his candles, praying to Hashem, saying, Donald Trump, you got to become president. Eric Adams.
Yeah, even though you see Donald Trump throw him a bone at the dinner last, I don't know if you want to get that kind of compliment.
Yeah.
You want his help.
But that's really, in many of these cases that we already know about and the superseding indictments that are coming, that's really his only hope.
By the way, on that superseding stuff, I'm not so sure you're right anymore. It's now been a few weeks, and we've heard nothing.
Anthony, what do you think? It comes all in one.
If it comes down to this, man, he may skate.
There's cooperation deals.
Yeah.
There's confidential informers. You got to move people out to Laramie, Wyoming, where they end up serving the Cheneys, nachos and Slurpees with a new name and new identity. Don't worry, they're coming. They're coming, Anthony. But you don't want to miss Left versus Right. That's this Saturday, 4 to 5. I'll be in the ring with Anthony. And if you've missed any previous Left versus Right confrontations, you got to go to WABCRadio.com.